Today, my group and I are going to discuss and going to exhibit all the literary techniques and all the appeals Henry David used in his last chapter of his journal Walden, The Conclusion. He used logical appeals, including but not limited to analogies and rhetorical questions and emotional appeals, things that he used and appeals that he used to transfer the reader from the place that he's reading his journal into the experience itself, to make him or to conclude all of the sides of his experience into these chapters. And he concluded the results of his experience and how it affected him, and negatively and positively, what things that he recommend and what things that he doesn't want people to get negatively affected by. And he experienced individualism, non-conformity, and self-realization, which the three of them was beneficial for him and was positively affecting his own and inner peace. Thoreau had his way to include the logical appeal into the chapter to prove his experiment, and then in the first section of the chapter, he started exaggerating the idea of mind traveling, how it benefits the mind, how it wide ranges the human's soul and mind, how it can be beneficial for the own thoughts, and how it can wide range your thoughts and your mind. And then he let his emotions conquer the rest of this part, and he started to say how a human can be successful by setting a goal for himself, and how people should know what they exactly want, and this is gonna be the first steps in the ultimate goal of success, as he himself shown a great courage and as he set it a goal for himself, and he did it when he traveled to Walden Pond to live and to have his experience as an individual, and this shown a great courage from him. And then he proved all of that by his very famous quote: "I learned that, at least by my experience, if one advances confidently into the direction of his dream and endeavors to live the life which he has imagined, he will pass an invisible boundary." And this shows how he was fully convinced with what he thought of, and how his experience proved the addition of the logical appeals that Thoreau did, that conveys an unpatriotic tone that gets the reader to be more convinced and more conveyed by the whole parts of self-realization, how self-realization can be beneficial for the mind and for the soul, how it can make you understand yourself. And then in the second paragraph, he stops the logic and he starts to let his emotion be in control of what he's writing, and he starts to let his experience let out with his emotions. And he starts to exaggerate how overthinking can be positive and from a side and negative from the other side. If you overthink something to get to realize a solution for it, maybe it can be positive for you. But if you overthink your life, if you overthink your whole decisions, this is gonna be negatively effective on your own mind and your own soul and your own peace. You're gonna start to lose your peace, your inner peace. You're gonna start to lose parts of yourself only because of overthinking. He started to exaggerate how the human being can be his own trap, and how he can negatively affect himself, how the human can do things that negatively affect him. And then he stops exaggerating about mind traveling, about all of the sides of this part of his experience, and he starts to mention the facts about the places around him, about Walden Pond itself, to get the reader to feel like he's sitting with him, like he's being a part of this experience. He's not only reading about it. In this part of the third paragraph, he starts to get deeply into the facts and the things around him. He started to describe how peaceful and beautiful Walden Pond is. An example for this, he said, "Southern customers objected by its blue color, which is the evidence to its purity." He showed how pure and how beautiful Walden Pond is. He started to exaggerate how pretty was the nature around him, and how people needs nature to heal themselves, to start a new chapter with their own selves, to heal from everything that they have every day, from the routine they're getting into, from the problems they face, from the decisions they have to make. They have to get time where they are alone, to use their mind, to express every emotions around them, to have their new start, their fresh start, to start a new chapter in their lives from time to time. And this shows the importance of individualism, how people use their minds more when they're alone, how you have to have your own time, to renew your inner peace. And then this shows how his experience was a very successful one from his own thoughts and from the reader thought. He tried to convey all the emotions and all the logic he had and everything he felt to the reader around him to make him feel like he's part of this experience. He wanted the reader to know how important was individualism for him, how important was mind traveling for him, how important was to not overthink in order not to negatively affect yourself. He wanted everyone to learn how to do things around him. He wanted the reader.
Hello, I'm Jenna Mahmoud from the Yellow Group, and I'm going to break down my section, which is section 2. In body paragraph 1, I'm going to discuss soaps. The author used soaps to make it easier for the reader to understand his journal, and also to analyze his journal as much as possible. SOAP stands for speaker, occasion, audience, purpose, and subject. The author used I, which in SOAP stands for speaker, which is him, Henry David Thoreau. Also, by this method, the author is simplifying the main things like speaker, purpose, and occasion, and so on. So there won't be any confusions for the reader. In body 2, I talked about metaphor and simile. The author used metaphors to describe one thing in terms of another. Quote, a living dog is better than a deadline. End of the quote. He means by that, a living dog is more effective than a deadline. And here is the metaphor. He described a living dog in terms of a deadline. Then simile. Simile is used to compare between things by using like or as, which may be dissimilar. Quote, I left the woods for as good reason as I went there. End of the quote. The author said that he went to the woods for a good reason, and he left it for a good reason as well. The author used metaphor and simile to deliver his thoughts the best way possible. Now we come to the third body paragraph. In the journal, the author used a lot of rhetorical questions. The author used rhetorical questions for multiple reasons, like to emphasize a point, to start an argument, or he just wants the reader to think or understand a point. But usually, the author start the argument by asking a rhetorical question. Quote, are these the problem that most concern mankind? End of the quote. Henry David wondered if a certain type of problems that makes humans more concerned. The rhetorical questions allow the reader to understand the author's opinion. Thank you.
I am Salim Muhammad from the Yellow Group 10A, and today I'm going to be representing Section 3. So, in Body 1, I wrote about syntax, to be specific, about abstract diction. Abstract diction is one of the types of the syntax. Abstract diction is when the author uses words and phrases to describe qualities that cannot be prevented with our five senses. In Body 2, I'm going to break down the literary devices. I'm going to discuss the tone, mode, and personification. Firstly, I'm going to talk about the tone. The tone is the attitude a writer takes toward a subject, character, or the audience. Secondly, I'm going to talk about the mode. The mode is the emotion of the author. For example, happy, sad, angry, whatever. Lastly, personification. Personification is giving a human qualities to non-living things. The third body paragraph, I mentioned a lot of literary devices, but I'm going to talk about three of them. I'm going to talk about hyperbole, illusion, and analogies. Firstly, I'm going to explain the hyperbole. Hyperbole is when the author starts to exaggerate. The authors usually use the hyperbole to show a strong feelings or to emphasize a specific point. Secondly, the allusion. Allusion is indirect reference to a place, person, thing, or idea. Lastly, I'm going to talk about analogies. Analogies is an extended simile or metaphor.
Hello, I'm Nada Ahmed from the Yellow Group in Mr. Quick's class, 10th grade. And I'll be presenting the fourth section of our rhetorical analysis essay concerning the 18th chapter of Henry David Thoreau's journal, Walden, or Life in the Woods. So the fourth section of our rhetorical analysis essay is mostly concerned with the use of details, synecdoche, paradox, metaphors, and analogies within this chapter. The first paragraph is mostly focused on the details that are used within this chapter, and I give a couple of examples of which. He uses details in his writing to give a clear image to the reader of his surroundings, and it gives off an objective tone. The second paragraph of the fourth section of our rhetorical analysis essay is mostly concerned with metaphors, analogies, and synecdoche, and I give more examples of which. He uses these tools to persuade the reader of his beliefs and ideas, and it gives off a clinical tone. The third and final paragraph of the fourth section of a rhetorical analysis essay shifts the focus onto other literary devices, which are paradox and a satirical use of mockery, which the author uses all throughout the chapter. And this tone of derision, this dramatic tone that the author uses, can be heard all throughout his journal, not just this chapter.